I think we need to make it quite clear that we have organized here in our public schools a program of education for those who want to take advantage of it. For those who are not interested in quality education, then they will have to look elsewhere for an opportunity to attend school.
Now, that was a large number of students involved in this. What's going to happen to all of these students?
For those who want to attend school, we would be delighted to have them. If they're not interested in attending school, then they're going to have to be excluded. We want only those students who mean business.
He was disappointed. He indicated to me that he found it very hard to understand how he and his wife could go through what they've gone through and what's happened to them and how it's disrupted their life. And he concluded by asking me, is it just? And of course, you know, I talked with him about it and told him that we would get together the first part of this coming week to review the whole thing.
For the past 3 months, witnesses have been waiting in this room to testify before the Dallas County Grand Jury. Many of those witnesses, like Texas Scottish Rite head Lee Lockwood, have captured the headlines because, of course, they were testifying in the famous case of John McKee. 7 indictments were handed down to McKee and his son-in-law, Paul Persifka. But that one spectacular case was only a fraction of the workload handled by this grand jury. They've set a record for hearing more than 4,100 cases and returning indictments in 75% of them. So now that its 3-month term is just about over, the jury is expected to make several recommendations when its final report comes out next Friday. The grand jury is expected to recommend the creation of 2 new additional criminal district courts to ease the workload on the 7 existing ones. Previous grand juries have recommended impaneling an additional grand jury to ease the load, but these 12 jurors apparently don't think that's necessary. I asked Dallas Bar Association President Henry Schlinger what he thinks about it.
Well, I'm very pleased that the grand jury will be recommending these additional courts. It's supportive of other organizations in this community that are urging the creation of these courts. These courts are essential for the criminal justice program in this community. The crime rate has increased, the filings and the indictments are larger in number than ever before, and needless to say, it's axiomatic that a good criminal justice system is served by a speedy, efficient, and just trial. And with these 2 additional courts, we doubtless can obtain a speedier trial and hopefully more just trials.
A new 6-man, 6-woman jury will reportedly be sworn in April 3rd, and their final report will probably be full of recommendations too. It remains to be seen whether or not they'll have to make the same ones. Martha McIntyre, Channel 8 News, on the move at the Dallas County Courthouse.
There was never really any substantial ground, any substantial negotiations made during all of the talks. So why continue something if you're not going to gain anything out of it?
You don't feel the peace talks were of any value?
I don't. No, definitely not.
Would you lay the blame on? Would you say that we made a sincere effort?
Yes, I do. It just seems like I said, it disgusted me to no end when the president put forth the proposal. Well, you give us our POWs, and then we will withdraw all of our troops. And then they turn around and they want something else, and it just seems like one thing right after another.
Well, I think this is probably our biggest weekend of the year. There's no doubts about it. We have two big games with Dallas and one against Tulsa. And I think if we can pick up 4 points this weekend, we'll be in the playoffs. If we win all 6, there's no doubt about it. And it's going to work out mathematically. I think if we lost all 3 games, we'd still be in the playoffs, I feel, but we'd be fighting right down to the wire. Naturally, I'd like to come up this weekend with a big weekend, and so that we can make next week a little easier and hopefully prepare ourselves for the postseason activity.
No, there hasn't been any offer. Just there's a good friend of mine who went down there as president and general manager, and we do talk a lot about basketball. But he's got Tex Winters as coach down there, and as far as I know, I haven't heard anything about Tex leaving. Everybody else tells me that he's leaving, but I haven't heard anything about it. And I'm very satisfied here at Dallas with everything.
Well, I think so, but after you play a little while, Vern, you have an inkling of what's going on. You know how the organization is being run. You know what they're looking for, and I've had an idea each time I've been traded.
Ted, of course, you know, in a situation where you come to a club like the Rangers, I think you have expressed the fact that you knew they did want you.
Well, I think I did know that, you know, just from reading things in the paper, too. I'm very happy to be here, believe me. Like I say, I felt I'd be traded from St. Louis because I knew the situation there, and I was just going to be a utility man there. They did need pitching. I didn't know where I was going to go, but I had the feeling that I'd go someplace.
Do you have the idea here that you're a definite at second base?
Well, you know, you're never really a definite. I found that out. You definitely have to do the job to stay there, and I think I've got an inside track on it. Of course, I can't take it that easily. I'm going to go out there and do whatever I can. It's a young ball club. They got a lot of good young talent, and someday they're going to take my place. I realize that too, you know, but I'm fighting them just as much as they are fighting me, so it's a two-way street.
Is there any particular aspect of your game that you want to work on down here?
Well, all of it at all times. You know, everybody has to do that, but I think what I'd like to do mostly is work with Ted a little bit and have him watch me hitting. And I know when I saw him take over the Washington club that first year, the transformation was outstanding. They came out and they looked like a completely different ball club, and I think everybody raised their batting averages that year, not only 5 or 10 points, but in some cases 40 and 50 points. And if he can do that for me and the other guys here, we're going to be all right.
When the bell sounded, signaling classes to begin, over 150 students were missing as they continued to boycott classes in an action that started yesterday afternoon when a student faction boycotted a school assembly, which they called unfair. Today, the group of Mexican-American and black students, which make up approximately 31% of Skyline's student body, presented Assistant Deputy Superintendent Bill Stamps with a list of demands. Stamps warned the students to return to their classes 3 times before they were suspended indefinitely. When the students refused to leave the school student center, where they had been meeting with school officials, they were told they were breaking a law and police would be called in. Only then did pupils board school buses. The main concern of school officials was to keep the violence from breaking out among the students, as it did last January the 21st, when several students were injured during a similar student protest. Students' demands included a Mexican-American black course, which would last 1 full school term instead of 1 semester, and that the course would be required for graduation for all students. The students further demanded an open campus policy, and their final demand, as Stamps put it, is a classic one. They want amnesty for all students involved in the protest action. After the dispute ended, Stamps talked with reporters.
Is the administration going to make any of their demands?
Well, I do not know. Some of the demands that they make are beyond the realm of this school. Some of the demands are misunderstandings. For instance, they said that they want the campus liaison people to be counselors rather than police. Well, they are counselors, this type of thing. So, of course, everything that we can do to help solve the problem and to relieve the anxieties that any of our students have, we would do.
Was any violence necessary to get them to leave?
No. There was no violence necessary to get them to leave. They left under their own power, and fairly peacefully. There was no violence involved at all. At no time was there ever any violence.
Does it come down to a case of who runs the school?
Yes, this was what it was. Strictly who runs the school.
You're entering in order to
Well, the word separatist is, it depends upon who's looking at something, and I think it's misused, and it's an easy way to characterize what people say. And it's not really a fair description of what I'm all about in any sense.
Turning to the political scene for 1972, who are we looking at as a front runner for the Democratic Party?
I don't know. I think the party is very confused, and I think Wallace confused it a little bit more in the Florida primary. And it appears that we might have another front runner. I've learned now through my years of experience that I don't choose a contender this early in the race.
Sure, it's good to play anytime. I don't know whether the starting part of it has that much to do with it, but I'm happy to play anytime anytime that I can. And we've got the playoffs cinched up, and he's giving some of the other guys some rest, and so I'd be happy to take their spot most anytime.
You still as sold on professional basketball as you were when you signed with the Shafts?
Well, it's a business, and it's more of a business than it was in college, but it's a good life. You get a lot of travel in. It's good money, and the hours are good, and I can't complain about anything this year.
Can you think ahead to next year? Are you going to play next year?
I really haven't thought too much about it. I'm sure I'll give it another try. I'm just trying to play this year out, and then take a little vacation and think things out and get rested up, and just kind of take things as they come. I don't try to plan too much ahead in the future.
What do you think the playoffs will be like for the Shafts?
Well, we'll have a tough road. There's no doubt about it. Utah is probably one of the best one or two teams in the ABA, and they won it. They're the defending champions, and we have to go out there and play them 2 games out in their place right off the bat. So it'll be a tough road, but I think we're ready for them. I think we've shown vast improvement in the last 2 or 3 months, and we've beaten them the last 2 or 3 times, or played them close at least, and I think they respect us more than they used to early in the year. So I'm sure it's going to be a good playoff.
Our goaltending situation has been one of almost like a yo-yo, up and down. The last month, I think we've run something like 5 goaltenders through here. We do have Jerry Gray with us now, and Jerry was with us earlier in the year and had a 3-point .27 average, I think, when he left to go to Tidewater. He played the last 10 games in Tidewater and posted a 1.8 goals against average, and we're bringing him back, and we feel that he's going to be the key man to our playoff success. And with his experience in under pressure and in playoffs, I think he's going to be a tremendous asset to our hockey club, and that's why Detroit has sent him here. And I know Jerry was anxious to come back and do a job for us, and we certainly feel he can do it, and we're counting on him.
To do to try to persuade the legislators to go along with you?
We have called a meeting of the legislative delegation from Dallas, the legislators and the state senators, for next week, and hopefully at that time we'll inform them of our findings of the need for these new courts and solicit their support in the event there is a special meeting of the legislature.
Feel that Judge Hill's decision was just?
Well, I really can't comment on that because I don't want to. I have a great faith in the judicial system, and I don't want to comment on the judge's decision. I personally was disappointed, but I'm kind of a guy that every time I lose, I'm disappointed. And of course, the bigger the case, the bigger the disappointment, I suppose. But
did this case boil down to who would Judge Hill believe?
Well, I think probably every case does that. This case had a lot of factors involved. There's a law involved, there's facts involved. You can't just say, I believe one side or I believe the other. Judge Hill's opinion is rather lengthy. It deals with the search, it deals with a lot of things. But it's difficult to say that.